What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, the Detroit Lions have a lot of work to do this offseason. They have a lot of things that they could add, and there's a lot of different moves that are being speculated about. There's a lot of different things that they can do to get better this offseason. And today, just like we did a few days ago, we're going to be reacting to an article titled Four Things to Help the Detroit Lions defensively this offseason. Now, we did one very similar to this a few days ago, but that one was more focused on just overall and ended up being more offensively focused, whereas this one, rightfully so, is more heavily focused on the defensive side of the ball and improvements the Lions can make on that side of the football in order to get better. So I wanted to react to this one today and just very similarly give an opinion, kind of give what the Lions should be looking for, what the Lions should be, really doing at this point in the offseason, and really just kind of go through, give my thoughts and opinions on different potential scenarios and outcomes for this Detroit Lions team. So 4 moves the Detroit Lions must make to help their defense this season by Jacob Phillips. Let's get into it. So the first one is draft Tyree Wilson and Christian Gonzalez. The Detroit Lions have added some notable talent in their last 2 drafts under general manager Brad Holmes, because Brad Holmes is the best at this. They have 2 first-round picks again this year, and there's another opportunity coming to add top and young talent. Texas Tech edge rusher Tyree Wilson would be a nice addition to go with Aiden Hutchinson. The Lions got some help towards the end of the season with James Houston turning into a sack machine, 8 and 7 games, but you can never have too many capable edge rushers, and more pressure will make it easier for the secondary. Wilson is raw, but he has all the physical tools needed to be a star at the next level. And then they talk about Christian Gonzalez, 4 interceptions and 6 pass breakups the last season. Very physical, very, traitsy as far as that goes. So looking at the Detroit Lions draft, they draft at 6 and then they draft again at 18. If I had to guess, I would guess that Will Anderson and Jalen Carter will not be on the board. And of course, likely Bryce Young and CJ Stroud will not be there either. And there's a chance that Tyree Wilson is not on the board either when the Lions get to 6. But I think that is a little bit less likely of a situation. I would guess that maybe Myles Murphy goes ahead of Tyree Wilson on a lot of boards just because he's a little bit more polished as a pass rusher, really kind of more of a player and less of a prospect in the sense that Tyree Wilson is. But talking about these 2 players specifically, I think this would be a very good haul for the first round for the Detroit Lions, right? Tyree Wilson is big, he's fast, he's strong, he's athletic, and honestly, I know that this talks about him being an edge rusher, but I see him more as a 3 tech. He isn't very developed. He isn't very polished, but if he does one thing very well, he wins on the inside a lot. And even when he's on the edge, he wins on the inside of the tackle a lot more than he wins on the outside and around the edge of the tackle. And I think in a very similar move to what the 49ers did with DeForest Buckner a few years ago, they could move Tyree Wilson more on an inside, right, and have him be that inside pressure guy like they wanted Levi to be, like they would want Jalen Carter to be, or like they would want Deron Payne to be, because I think he fits that situation better. I think he would be a really good 3 technique in the NFL. He's big, he's long, he's incredibly strong and athletic. He wins a lot on the inside with power and just some quickness. He's a great athlete. He doesn't have a lot of bend, doesn't have a lot of pass rushing moves to get around the tackle. But if you are just asking him to play up the middle, plug up space, and get around guards, I think he could do that very, very well. So if you draft Tyree Wilson to be that guy, be that 3 technique because Jalen Carter's no longer there and Deron Payne didn't hit free agency, I think that could be a really good move for the Detroit Lions. However, if you're drafting him to be an Aiden Hutchinson, if you're drafting him to be a pure edge rusher, I wouldn't necessarily want that at 6 because, again, I don't think the bend is there. I think the tools are there, but I don't think the technique necessarily is there to really succeed at a high level at the edge rusher position. I think he'd be much more useful as a 3 technique on the inside while letting guys like Romeo Okwara, Aiden Hutchinson, James Houston, Josh Pascal, and John Kaminsky really do their work on the edges. But I think, adding defensive talent, adding talent, on the defensive line is never a bad idea. And of course, if the big names are gone, right? If Jalen Carter and Will Anderson and Miles Murphy are all not there, I think you could draft Tyree Wilson, draft a high upside player, have a plan for him, and develop him into somebody that could be that dominant interior rusher that you really need for the Detroit Lions. Now, looking at Christian Gonzalez, I think Christian Gonzalez is a decent player. I haven't really scouted the cornerback position all that much, but Christian Gonzalez is very much worthy of a first round pick. He's not my first choice at cornerback. I think that, Devon Witherspoon is very good. I think that Cam Smith and Joey Porter Jr. are both better than him, but I would assume there's going to be a few cornerbacks gone. I would assume that Devon Witherspoon goes very early, probably top 10 as a prospect. I wouldn't be surprised if Joey Porter Jr. as well as Cam Smith go well before the 18th overall pick. So if the Lions end up with Christian Gonzalez, I think that would be a good fit, right? He's a very good press man corner. He has long arms. He's got all the tools to succeed in the NFL, and he's pretty developed. I mean, he's not a raw prospect in the sense that Joey Porter is, or in the sense that some of these other cornerbacks might be. He is pretty polished. He is very athletic. He is a versatile player, and he has the body type. He has the skills. He has the frame to really be a top cornerback in the NFL. Step in day one, fit right into the system, and really be something very special. So, grading this move, I think this is a good move. I think would be something that would be very beneficial to the Lions, especially if both players are utilized correctly. Again, maybe not my top two players at either respective position, but if the Lions walk away from the first round with Tyree Wilson and Christian Gonzalez, I think that they will very much take that and be happy with the talent that they have walked away with. Now, moving on to the second one, sign linebacker Levante David. The Lions are in the top half of the league in cap space right now, and they can create a lot more if they get creative. Basically meaning cut Michael Brockers, cut Halapaloe Vaitai, and potentially Romeo Okwara or Charles Harris. Their first move should be to sign Levante David, who has played his entire career at Tampa Bay, but is now a free agent and has been the leader of the Bucs defense for a while and provide the same for the Lions at a high level of production. That he would do much needed veteran presence and is still among the league's elite position. I don't think this is necessarily a bad move. I just really question taking a linebacker and signing a linebacker, because I would assume Levante David's going to want between $8 to $9 million a year on his contract. That's just genuinely what, a lot of the top linebackers are looking for as of right now. Even as an older player, I would assume Levante David's going to want 1 to 2 years, $8 to $9 million a year. And the Lions can certainly afford that. If Levante wants to come to Detroit, I don't think he is a bad option. I do think he took a little bit of a step down this year. I don't think he was quite as good this season as maybe in years past. But like it said, veteran linebacker, has been great for a long time, is a great leader, has led the Bucs defense to a Super Bowl and back. I mean, he's been a very good player for a very long time. I think is one of the more underrated players throughout his career as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Now, I question the positional value, because a linebacker is the most devalued position in the NFL, at least on the defensive side of the ball. And when you have a defense that doesn't have an elite cornerback, that doesn't have, I would say, a top defensive line, even though I think Detroit's is very good, I don't think they're necessarily the best or top 5 defensive line in football. They still need to add some pieces there, as well as having some safeties and secondary problems that really need to be addressed. I would almost rather allocate that money somewhere else, right? Put it into James Bradbury as a number 1 cornerback. Put it into, Daron Payne if he's available at a defensive tackle position, more so than taking Levante David, because I think there are some really good depth linebackers. I think there are some very underrated linebackers in this class that are going to be significantly cheaper. Guys that I was looking at the other day, like former first-round pick Devin Bush, who has a lot of athletic traits and could potentially become somebody that, Kelvin Shepard could really want to coach and could get a lot out of. Or a guy from the 49ers who is a little bit running under the radar in Azeez Al-Shaair, who has been a very good player for the 49ers, but is kind of overshadowed by Dre Greenlaw and, of course, Fred Warner, who are some of the top linebackers in the NFL. So I think addressing linebacker is certainly a need. I think that Levante David, for the right price, could even be a very good football player and help the Lions a ton. But I think it really depends what the rest of their free agency class looks like because, again, linebacker's an undervalued position. There's a lot of other cheaper, very effective and efficient linebackers in this class. I think they already have their leaders on the defense. I don't think they're really in need of huge captains or leaders necessarily. So I don't think this would be a bad move necessarily, but I don't think it's necessarily the top need in free agency or for the Detroit Lions defense at this point. Moving on to moves 3 and 4. Sign safety Von Bell. The second free agent signing for the Lions defense should be Bell, who has played for the Cincinnati Bengals for the past 3 seasons and was worth every penny of the contract they gave him. Kirby Joseph looks like a keeper for the Lions at safety, but Deshaun Elliott is a free agent, and Tracy Walker's status to start the next season is a question mark as he works his way back from a torn Achilles. Now, this one I think also has, obviously some truth to it, right? Kirby Joseph has been very good. I have my speculations about whether Deshaun Elliott is going to return or leave in free agency because the safety market is pretty big. And I think he could get a pretty big pay raise somewhere other than Detroit, especially if Detroit doesn't want to spend big money on safety for a second offseason in a row. But I don't think that Von Bell would be the right pick. Now, firstly, again, Kirby Joseph is very good. I am very confident that Tracy Walker will return to the Detroit Lions by training camp. He was hurt very early in the season and is already doing some very limited field work. He is not back to 100% yet, but he is getting to a point where he's going to start off-season training. And he even himself has said he will be ready by training camp to suit up and play with his teammates yet again. So I'm not worried about Tracy Walker's return for the start of the season. I'm not worried about Kirby Joseph's development or falling off or anything like that. And even Ifeatu Melifonwu, who started 2 games late in the season for the Detroit Lions, showed a lot of flashes, especially against the Chicago Bears. However, I do think safety could be a position need, whether it be through free agency or whether it be through the NFL draft. Now, if you're going through the draft, I think there's a lot of really, really good players. I believe it's Jair. I can't remember his last name, but the kid from Penn State who has 10 interceptions over the last 2 years. I really like Jordan Battle from Alabama, Tyler Nubin from Minnesota. Those are all day 2 picks that could become Detroit Lions and fill very similar roles to what Deshaun Elliott did, right? Thumpers, guys that can hit, guys that can take the football away, guys that can be leaders and be all around very, very good safeties, especially when ranging around the box. But I don't think Von Bell is necessarily the answer. If you're going to go out and spend money on a free agent safety, why not just bring back the guy that has been in the defense? Why not just bring back a guy who has, led this defense, who has played in this defense, who knows how to play in the defense and has shown that he can do so at a high level? I think Von Bell will be more expensive than Deshaun Elliott when the free agency market hits. So if you're going to go out and sign a free agent safety, why not bring back the guy that's cheaper, the guy that's been here, the guy that knows the defense, who knows his teammates, that knows the coaches? If the Lions are going to sign a safety, it should be Deshaun Elliott. And if Deshaun Elliott doesn't want to sign and they want to go cheaper, it shouldn't be somebody with the price tag of Von Bell because you're essentially just getting a similar player for a more expensive price tag to come in and learn the defense alongside the rest of the new free agents. And then the last one is sign defensive tackle Draymond Jones. The last piece of this puzzle would be to sign defensive tackle Draymond Jones. He is not a name many people know, but he did not get a lot of attention nationally. As he did not get a lot of attention nationally, but he was a terror on the inside for the Broncos before getting his hip injured in Week 14. He was a top 5 in pressures among defensive tackles and then 6.5 sacks in 13 games. Here's where I sit with the Draymond Jones, because this is not the first time that I've heard this. I don't think Draymond Jones is necessarily the best option for the Detroit Lions, because I really would want somebody to be a superstar in Detroit, and I don't think Draymond Jones will be that guy. Now, yes, I see that, he was top 5 in pressures among defensive tackles, 6.5 sacks in 13 games, but that, to me, I just don't think Draymond Jones is necessarily the right fit for Detroit. I think that, obviously Kaminsky was very good. I think Isaiah Buggs was very good. Of course, you have Ali McNeil, who's very good. And hopefully Levi, coming off of an injury-riddled season, who did not play last year, can come back and do something similar to what Draymond Jones did with Denver a year ago. And maybe this is just bias. Maybe this is just, you know, you just want the big name. But honestly, if the Lions are going to address defensive tackle this year, and I think that they will, whether it be through the draft or through free agency, I think it should either be a guy that has had more long-staying success in the NFL or somebody that has proven more throughout the NFL, like a Daron Payne, like a Dalvin Tomlinson from Minnesota, right? Guys that have been around a while, guys that are real true veterans and have had some phenomenal Pro Bowl caliber seasons, or you take your shot in the draft because likely the best players available at your selection in the draft is going to be Will Levis, Tyree Wilson, or Devon Witherspoon. And I think regardless of if Draymond Jones is there or not, the right pick there would be Tyree Wilson. Or of course, if Jalen Carter somehow falls, it's Jalen Carter. So I think that Draymond Jones seems more like a Band-Aid than a long-term player. It seems more like another prove-it deal, which I'm not against necessarily, but it seems more like a prove-it deal, kind of a backup, kind of a rotational guy where I don't think Draymond Jones would really be that big of a plus, that much bigger of an addition than a guy like John Kaminsky, then a guy like even Isaiah Buggs, who showed really, really good flashes late in the season as a pass rusher last year. So I'm not necessarily against it. If it's for the right price, if it's for relatively cheap, I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, that's a bad pickup. But I think, again, money can be allocated to different spots where, right, I think that there's more opportunities to get defensive tackle in the draft. There's more opportunities. I don't think that Daron Payne will hit the free agency market, but if he does, I think that a lot of money should go towards Daron Payne. If you don't get him, I think Dalvin Tomlinson from Minnesota, who is more likely to hit the market, could be even a better option at that point than Draymond Jones. So it's not that I think this would be a bad pickup, but I think that there are better options out there than Draymond Jones. So with that being said, that's kind of the article. That's all it really had to say. For suggestions of things to do for the Detroit Lions to make their defense significantly better, I think if all of these moves were to come true, the Lions would be a better defense. I think Draymond Jones would be a fine addition. Even Von Bell, as much as I don't think would be the right pickup, I think you could make the argument for. And then, of course, right, this would be a very solid top of the draft. And then you have the Levante David signing, who, again, I don't think should be the top linebacker necessarily, or at least not the top guy to throw money at phase one of free agency, but certainly not a bad pickup to say the least. So with all that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below, what do you think about these four moves? If all four of them came true, if one of the four came true, what would you want to see the Detroit Lions do in free agency? I'd be very curious to you guys think down in the comments below. With all that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.